Welcome to the Communication Diva Podcast, episode 147. Today on the podcast, 9 ways to advance your career. The fastest way I found to advance one's career is to throw double sixes, but only twice in a row, because if you do it 3 times in a row, you have to go to jail without collecting $200, which is totally counterproductive.
Hi there, this is Jenn Swanson. Welcome to the Communication Diva Podcast, the podcast that helps you to get the job, to love your work, and to advance your career. Well, we've lost a Canadian legend this week to glioblastoma, or brain cancer, at the age of 53. Gord Downie of the Tragically Hip. And if you don't know who I'm talking about, I urge you to go look him up. After his diagnosis in 2016, the Hip went on a farewell tour, and so many Canadians lobbied our national radio station, the Canadian Broadcasting Corporation, CBC, asking that the final concert that was going to be held in Kingston, Ontario, which is the band's hometown, be broadcast live across the nation. And because so many people asked, they obliged. And that summer evening, 1 in every 3 Canadians tuned in. Can you believe it? 1 in every 3 Canadians. And that doesn't even count the people that were a whole bunch of people gathered around televisions and pubs and restaurants. And that doesn't count all the people that were at the concert. So it might even be more. But 1 in 3 Canadian citizens tuned in to experience that concert. And I'll never forget, we were on Pender Island, one of the Gulf Islands. We were at a cabin in the summer, and there was no television at the cabin that we go to. And so we ran around that day trying to find out where we could watch this concert, where we could have teenagers come in, because the pubs don't allow people who are underage to come in. So we found a sushi restaurant, and bless their cotton socks, they let us sit right by the television. They turned it up loud, and we kept ordering things because we were there for well over 3 hours, and got to experience the concert with the rest of the country. And that's an incredible statistic, and it goes to show what an incredible influence this man and this band have had in the fabric of Canadian life over the past 30 years. Not only was Gord Downie an incredible performer and a poet and a person, he was an incredible citizen, and he showcased our country in a way that held up the beauty and the uniqueness of it, but also the tragedy of some of our history, particularly when it concerns the treatment of our First Nation people. Gord Downey used his platform even after his diagnosis, and in the last year especially, not to focus on himself, which so easily he could have done, being as sick as he was, but to focus on the plight of others, to continue to use his gifts of creativity and of lyric and his passion for people to make this world, and in particular this country, a little bit better. Our Prime Minister, Justin Trudeau, gave an emotional tribute to him the morning that we all found out we had lost him. And on the day I recorded this, which is today, Tuesday, I don't know when you're listening to this, it comes out Thursday, I've had the national radio station on all day as tribute after tribute after tribute has been shared, and music, song after song after song has played. And again, if you don't know who Gord Downie is or who the band Tragically Hip are, go look it up. As one person on a call-in show said today, this music was the soundtrack of our lives. So I'm raising my wine glass tonight to Gord and to the Hip, and I thank you for your art, for your inspiration, and for touching the lives and hearts of people in this country, in the music world, and I'm sure far beyond. So thank you. So glad that you are here today, because today we are going to talk about career advancement. And it's absolutely pouring rain outside my studio window here, and the trees are just whipping back and forth. And I'm really hoping that I get through this recording and don't lose power. And truth be told, this is the second time I'm recording this today, because the first time I forgot to plug something in. But it's been kind of one of those days where I'm distracted and not fully on top of my game. And I'm apparently not the only one feeling that way today. So if you hear the sound of rain and wind in the background, there's not much I can do about it, but I'm just hoping the power allows me to record this. At my book launch a few years ago, I gave a career talk, and during the talk, I invited people who were there to do an exercise in which I asked them to name one thing they knew they should do every day, like a habit, something they should do every day, but that they probably didn't. And they did this in pairs, and I asked them afterwards to volunteer to offer some of the things they had written down. And I heard things like, I should floss my teeth every day, I should exercise every day, I should make my bed, pack my lunch, phone my mother, drink several glasses of water, weed out my inbox, things of that nature that we all know that we should do. So then I asked, and there were about 100 people in the room, if any of them had managed my career on their list. Well, when no one did, I pretended to be horrified and surprised and shocked. And then we had a big discussion about why manage my career is a super important thing to be doing daily. Well, here's the thing. Your career is not going to manage itself. The truth is, you're in charge. And now you might be saying, well, wait a minute, Jen, I'm in a lame job that I don't like. I'm just getting by to make a paycheck. This is not the job, my dream job that I want to end up at. What do you mean I'm in charge? And what I mean is exactly that. You might not be in charge of the role that you're in or the particular job that you have to do, but you are in charge of advancing your career, whether that means in that particular company or in a future career, a future job that you'd like to be in. It's kind of like the difference between sitting around hoping something good and interesting and exciting is going to happen to you and going out and making something good and interesting and exciting happen. You can sit around hoping and then being disappointed a lot, and lots of people do that, and sometimes it works out, and most of the time it doesn't. But you can do that if you want to do that, or you can take action. And you can create results. And yes, not everything is going to work out exactly the way you want it to. Believe me, life is full of twists and turns and surprises, as we all know. But as far as career advancement goes, you do have some control. You just need to make that out loud decision to choose. How can you manage your career then as a daily habit, like making your bed or flossing your career? How can you... flossing your teeth, flossing your career. See, I told you I'm not really with it today. Well, I've got a list of 9 things to share with you. And you can't and you don't need to do all of them every single day, but doing something each day, no matter how tiny or how big it might be, means that you're in the driver's seat and you're not leaving it to the winds of fate. Every single step forward is a step closer to your goal. So I'm going to share these 9 steps with you. But before I jump in, I want to remind you, if you've heard this before, if you are a listener, a longtime listener, and if you haven't, I'm going to remind you again that we have a private Facebook group that I would love for you to join. It's called The Diva Community. You can look it up on Facebook and request to join. And there you can ask questions. You can share your ideas and expertise. I'm on there just about every day. People are sharing things that they're creating. People are sharing the work that they're doing towards their careers. I learned something new last night. One of the members was telling me about a brand new coalition that has been created in Canada on the prevention of drowning. And I learned that drowning is the number one childhood killer in this country. is drowning. So I learned something new. People are talking about courses they're taking. People are talking about things that they're doing for fun and for their health. So it's a small group at this point, but they are engaged, and you are more than welcome to jump in and join the conversation. So look up the Diva community and come on over and say hi. Okay, so the 9 things that you can do toward career advancement. The first thing, figure out where you're at. Do a self-assessment of sorts. So you'll need to set aside about 30 minutes, 45 minutes, an hour, whatever you think you need, and write all this stuff down. What skills and certificates and experience do you have right now? It's almost like updating a resume, but maybe you aren't going anywhere. Maybe you're in the job that you want to advance in the career you want to advance in. And so it's good to take an inventory, to create a baseline, to take stock of where you're at and know where you're starting from in this. So write it all down. What skills and experience and certificates and training do you have right now? What are you offering the company that you're working for at this moment? What are your hard skills? So the skills, the things that you have to know how to do, the technical skills of the trade. And what are your soft skills? And here are some harder questions. What's missing? Where are the gaps in what you have and what you would like to have? And here's a classic coaching question for you. What would it take to get you from where you are right now to where you want to be? What would it take to get you from where you are right now to where you want to be? So figure out where you're at. That's tip number 1. Number 2 is find out what others think of your performance. So talk to your supervisor or your manager and ask what he or she thinks that you need to work on as far as your job performance. Now, maybe you've had a performance review recently. Maybe your company doesn't do that. Lots of smaller ones don't. But this is a vulnerable thing to do. And it's also a highly proactive and a very professional thing to do, is to ask for feedback, to ask to know so that you know, because you might think you know what you think, but what about what everyone else thinks, which does matter in career advancement. So it is a vulnerable position to put yourself in, but at the same time, it is an admirable one to do. So ask what you need to work on, what you could use more skill in. Ask for honest feedback, and when you do, be prepared to hear it. And treat the feedback as gift rather than as criticism. Now, you don't necessarily have to agree with all of it, and some of it might feel fair, and some of it might not feel fair. But be gracious about receiving it if you are the one who asked for it in the first place. And again, this will do 2 things. This will help you work on advancing, on figuring out where you need to improve your skills, and it will allow you to be seen as being so, as being proactive, as being interested, as being dedicated to doing well, and as being professional. All of that is really good. So that's number 2. Find out what others think of your work, of your performance. Number 3 is to create a plan. So once you know where you're at, both from doing your own self-assessment and from asking for and receiving feedback from others, then you are ready to make a bit of a timeline for yourself. Where do you see yourself in a year or in 2 years or in 5 years? Set up a timeline for your career. So put where you are now and where you would like to be on a timeline, on a piece of paper. Do it the old-fashioned way or on the computer, whatever you like. But set up a timeline of where you are now, because in a year or in 2 years or in 5 years, you're going to be at that time frame eventually, ultimately anyway. And if you don't have this roadmap, then you're sitting back letting things happen. It's more strategic, it's more purposeful, and you'll have more success if you actually set up a career timeline for yourself. Now, the 4th thing goes along with that. Set some goals. Working backward from your end goal on this timeline, no matter what timeline it is that you set for yourself, figure out where you need to be and when, and then fill in some dates to aim for. So set smaller goals in between where you are now and where you want to be at the end of your timeline, and set some smaller goals. So by this time next year, I want to get on the planning team for the big fundraising event so that I can be seen to be in a leadership position, for example. Okay, so how are you going to do that? What do you need to do or get in order to be able to reach that goal? What steps can you take? So you can have the big goal of where you want to end up. You can have smaller goals, and then you can have tiny goals in between those. So you can see what I'm doing. You're setting up something to follow, a roadmap, something to aim for. I'm using terrible cliches today. I apologize. I'm using a lot of them, but I'm trying to give you a bit of a visual here in an audio format. So that was number 4. So number 5 is share it. You make goals real when you tell somebody about them. Maybe not all of it. You may not want to share all of it, but you may want to share your very next goal, what it is that you are reaching for next. You can share it with your manager or your supervisor or with someone who can help you to make it happen. Basically, ask. If you don't ask, you'll never know. So if you want to get on that planning team, maybe you ask to get on the planning team. Perhaps you need to take a course in order to gain a skill that will ultimately help you in your end game. Ask for the time or the funding or the authorization from whoever needs to give it to be able to take that course that will help you in the future. You don't need to reveal, again, your entire plan, but you can reveal a little bit of it, just your first goal. You won't know what might be offered to you if you don't at least ask. So this is sharing it. Share it a little bit at a time and see where that leads. Number 6 is to take action. So get training if you need it. Take opportunity if it arises. And again, that can be a little bit scary, especially if and even if they are slightly or out of your comfort zone. Push yourself a little bit. We grow from the inside out, not from the outside in. And so pushing yourself from the inside out to step out of that comfort zone a little bit is good. It's an indication, if you are uncomfortable, that you're learning and that maybe you're growing and you're stretching. So take those opportunities that come along, even if they seem hugely like a bad idea, then don't do it. You want to trust your gut. But if it's a little bit like, I don't know if I can do that, then try it and see and push yourself just a little bit. And especially that. Say yes when you are saying yes to what you're saying yes to aligns with the goals that you've set. And say no if you need to also, if you're able to. Say no to things that don't align with the goals that you've written down on your career timeline. If you're able to, say no. If it doesn't further your plan, it might just be a distraction. And sometimes it's really hard to say no to stuff that's fun and that you're good at and that it would be easy for you to do. But you want to make sure that you're sticking to your plan. So consider it carefully when you're saying yes or you're saying no to something that comes along. Number 6 is network, and I know network gives many of us the heebie-jeebies. I have been to multiple networking events, and I've stopped going to a lot of them because it seems so set up and so false to be in a big space with a bunch of people who are trying to sell each other stuff. That is not my idea of good networking. Networking is going to places where you'll meet interesting and different people that you might be able to collaborate with, and you might be able to provide service for, and you might be able to connect with. So try going to places. And again, if you're staying in the same company and want to advance in that company, then that's a different kind of networking than you would be doing if you were trying to move to a different company or a different organization or a different career altogether. So think about your timeline and what situations do you want to be in, and who would you like to meet that might help advance your career in some way in the future. And many jobs are gotten through connections and through who it is that you know, rather than a random job posting online. So networking can be very important in getting other jobs, but also within your organization. If there are people you haven't met, if there are people you've never talked to, rather than standing around at a company event talking to only the people you know, go meet more people in other areas who work in different departments, and find out what they do and make some connections, because you never know what will happen after that. And if you tell somebody that you are interested in a particular opportunity, then you will at least be on their radar in the future. So networking is very important. Number 8 is spiff up your online profiles as you go. And if you get a new training certificate in something, add it to your LinkedIn profile. The thing is, even if you're staying in the same company, if you meet new people, people are maybe going to say, who is that person I talked to yesterday? And they'll go look at your online profile. And if it's outdated, if it doesn't reflect the goals that you have now set for yourself, then you're doing yourself a disservice. So take a look at all of your social media platforms, clean them up if there are things on there you don't want to be on there anymore, or that you don't want people seeing, and tidy up. Your LinkedIn profile is sort of like it can be used as a living resume. And so clean it up and make sure it aligns with the goals that you've got set, even if you're staying at the same company. And if you're not, if you're planning to move, then this is, even that much more important, is to have it up to date and reflective of who you are and where you want to go. So if you need an objective eye to take a look at it, ask someone that you trust to take a look at your profiles and say, what am I missing here? What should I add? What should I take away? What kind of person does this show me to be? Because of course our online personalities are all constructed. And is it really a reflection of who you are? Or does it come across as not really being authentic? So how do you make it so that it's actually representing who you want people to see and who you are? So number 9 is look after yourself. And I know I say this all the time, and I don't always listen to my own advice, but that's because it's hard to do when life is busy and when there's so much going on. But it's key. It's hard, if not impossible, to learn new things and to advance your career if you're falling apart physically, mentally, or spiritually. You need to take days off. You need to rest. You need to eat well, nutritious food that makes you feel good. You need to move your body regularly. You need to unplug and get out into nature. I just learned about something called forest bathing. I probably talked about this already, but this is the practice of going out into the greenery. And I also read somewhere that people that do people who are around greenery tend to get sick less often and tend to live longer. So get out into the green spaces that are around you and soak up some of that nature. Career advancement takes time and effort and focus. It's completely possible, but it's not an instant proposition. But with time and planning and consistent steps forward, you will get from where you are now to where you want to be before you know it. But like anything, it isn't going to happen instantly. You have to actually work on it. And so I suggest you take that timeline and put it somewhere you're going to see it, with your goals all written out. Put it somewhere where you're going to see it all the time, on your desktop, on your bulletin board, in your bathroom, somewhere where you're going to take a look and say, oh yeah, that's what I'm working on next. That's the next goal that I'm aiming for. It takes focus and it takes effort, but you'll be able to look back and say, yeah, this is the journey that I took, and here I am. So it is completely possible, but it does take intentionality and work. So that's all I've got for you today. I'm looking out the window at this crazy wind that's blowing and the trees, and I'm sure there's going to be a lot of mess to clean up out there. But we made it through with the power still being on, so I'm happy about that. Thank you so much for listening. Again, come on over to the Diva Community, the private Facebook group, and jump into the conversation. Say hi, introduce yourself so we get to know you a little bit better. Ask any questions that you'd like to ask, and let's help build a place for community and conversation, because I think that's always a good thing. And I until next time, I'm going to sign off because it's getting more windy out there. This is Jenn Swanson asking you to go get